Oh, Rick, you finally wake up?
Well, at least we got a quorum now.
Yep.
We can get started.
I'm here. I'm just not on. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, let's call. Am I on?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, let's call this meeting to order. City of North Kansas City, Missouri, regular council meeting, March 16th, 2021. Call a roll.
Councilmember DeLong.
Here.
Councilmember Saper.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Toll.
Here.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Here.
Councilmember Stewart.
Here.
Councilmember Clark. Here. Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Councilmember DeLong to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance with all others remaining silent.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item is comments from the public. Ms. Nagahodo, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to the council tonight?
If you'd like to address the City Council, please use the raise hand feature at this time or *9 from your phone. Mr. Berlin, at this time, I'm not seeing anybody indicate that they would like to give a public comment.
All right, thank you. The next item is the consent agenda, comprised of the approval of the minutes of the work session of March 2nd, approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of March 2nd, the city tourism grant program grant application from River North District for the Pint Path event, and a proclamation in honor of Women's History Month.
Move to approve.
Second. Let's hear the proclamation.
Councilmember DeLong.
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Toll.
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark. Yes. Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
8-0, motion carried. Number 9, auditor's presentation of fiscal year 2019-2020 financial statements.
Thank you. City's auditor, Reuben Brown, LLP, has completed its audit of the city's financial statements for fiscal year 2019-2020 and will present its report to the City Council at this time. So at this time, I'd like to call on Chester Moyer of Reuben Brown.
Hello, this is Chester. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council tonight, to go over the results of the audit. And what is presented on the screen is what we call our viewpoints document. It does include our required auditor communications, in addition to other reports that we provide, a management letter, as well as our report letter for the comprehensive annual financial report. But I'll be summarizing the information within this tonight, and certainly encourage any questions. I do want to thank you all for your efforts this year. This has been an unusual year for us, certainly as auditors working with different state and local governments. It was this time last year that we were presenting the results of the prior year audit. A lot has happened in that time, as you know, a lot of exercising of judgment on your part, both your part as governance for the city and the administrators and management, professional management of the city. And I just want to thank you all for the work that you've done. It's been a lot of work. So Kim, if you're able to advance the slides, would you go forward to the slide that has the engagement team on it. So that would be about 3 slides ahead, please. You can keep going one more, please, Kim. Thank you, and stop there. So this is just a picture of the key members of our engagement team. They are familiar people from last year, which is a measure of quality that we feel like on our end that we can provide some continuity on the engagement team for the audit. And that did help us this year with the remote work environment. I do want to say that there were many other people involved on the audit engagement on our end, and I know the city commits a lot of resources towards helping us in all our requests, very extensive requests that we have, and we appreciate all the effort that management has put forth towards accommodating our requests and being transparent in our inquiries. Kim, can you go ahead 2 more slides, please, to the, they're perfect, thank you. So this begins our required communications to you as governance of the city. And on the left side of each of these slides will be a requirement, and on the right side are our comments in accordance with that requirement. And again, I'll try to summarize these in a meaningful way for everyone. So on the left side of the page, it is indicating what you have asked us to do as governance for the city. And what you've asked us to do is perform the audit in accordance with our auditing standards that would apply to any organization that we audit, city or otherwise. And then layered on top of that are the government auditing standards. So those are standards that are in addition to auditing standards that might be at a private organization, for example. So we conducted our audit in accordance with both of those standards. And I do want you to be reminded that presented within the financial statements of the city is the hospital fund. And the hospital fund comes from the City of North Kansas City Hospital, and that is not audited by us. That's audited by another accounting firm that we coordinate with. And also the hospital plan that is also presented within your financial statements of the city is audited by another auditor. And again, we coordinate with that other auditor to have that information included appropriately in your financial statements. So Kim, if you go to the next slide, please. So at this point, we are basically completed with our audit. Pending your approval tonight, we'll issue an unmodified opinion on the city's financial statements. That's our highest level of opinion that we give. It's a clean opinion. And then we also will issue a report on compliance and internal control. That's our management letter, another deliverable that we issue that's required because this is an audit under government auditing standards. Kim, can you go to the next slide, please? So at the top of the page, if for some reason there was other information included in our the financial statements that our audit report is included in, we like to know about it. We need to know about it in the event that there is information that may contradict what we've opined on. And to our knowledge, there is no other document at this point that contains our audit report. The planned scope and timing of the audit is consistent with what was planned. And the last box on there talks about the accounting practices of the city. And on the right side, we've highlighted a few things. Sometimes in some years, there's more to talk about here than in other years. This year is pretty straightforward. The first bullet point is your routine accounting policies that are included in the financial statements. The second bullet point is when we have to communicate any new accounting standards that were implemented during the current year. And the authoritative body that sets the standards for accounting standards to be implemented has basically provided relief for a year in implementing any new standards because of COVID. So next year, we would expect there to be new accounting standards that the city will be evaluating for implementation. But this year, there were no new accounting standards implemented. Turn to the next page, Kim. Thank you. So the financial statements not only include hard numbers that we can confirm with a bank, for example, and vouch to invoices. There are also estimates that are included in the financial statements that we have to evaluate. And on the right side of the page, on the upper right-hand side, are 3 areas that we do evaluate the estimates. Examples are the depreciable lives of capital assets. Your pension plan information is involved with an actuary who makes a lot of assumptions around the estimated liability and future contributions and investment returns, discount rates. There are a lot of assumptions that go into those calculations, and we do evaluate them. And then the investments that the city holds, as well as the pension plan holds. are also considered to be estimates, and we evaluated all of them and considered them to be reasonable in relation to the financial statements taken as a whole. At the bottom of this page, we do highlight a few disclosures that we feel like are potentially more significant than the other financial statement disclosures in the financial statements. So note 2 of the financial statements does include the summary of all the deposits and investments held by the city. Note 7 is the gaming rent revenue footnote, and note 9 has the information about the retirement systems and pension plans. Could you turn to the next page, please, Kim? Thank you. We are required to communicate to you as governance, again, if we had any difficulties encountered in performing our audit, and we're pleased to report that we did not have any. We're also required to communicate to you any corrected or uncorrected misstatements that occurred during the course of the audit. And those, we call them journal entries. Those journal entries are included at the back of the management representation letter, which is included as an attachment. Included with them are client journal entries, we call them. So those are journal entries that the client makes, the city makes after we receive the trial balance and have begun our field work. So we match up as adjustments that the client makes during the course of the audit, we also make, and the financial statements then present all the information that the client has adjusted as well. At the conclusion of the audit, we receive a document called the management representation letter, and that includes a reaffirmation that the city has provided everything that they could reasonably do to respond to our inquiries and the information that we've requested. And the draft of the management representation letter is included as an appendix to this document as well, if you're curious to read it. But again, it just reaffirms what the city has presented to us as being appropriate and accurate to the best of their ability during the course of the audit. Could you turn to the next page, please, Kim? So looking ahead to next year, we do expect there to be some GASB pronouncements. The GASB is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. That is the standard setter of accounting standards for state and local governments. That will require the evaluation from the city's perspective. So one is around fiduciary activities. That would be for next year. 2 years from now would be around leases. Don't expect that to have a significant impact on the city's financial statements. And then the last would be around conduit debt obligations. That may or may not have an impact on the financial statements, but it will require some evaluation from management. So after this, Kim, if you were to flip ahead, there really isn't any reason to for the purposes of this presentation, but there is the draft of the management representation letter, and then behind that are the client journal entries. So you can flip through that, Kim, if you want to, but it's there more as an exhibit. So our work includes, as I mentioned before, because this is done in accordance with government auditing standards, a management letter. And our management letter includes 2 items that we number according to the year, and they're consistent with the prior year. The first item in the management letter deals with the segregation of duties within the financial area of the city. This is a recurring comment. It really comes down to a cost-benefit assessment that the city makes each year in determining how many staff, would there need to be new staff added in order to improve the segregation of duties within the finance area. So again, that's a recurring comment from prior years, as is the second comment. And the second comment is that management within the city does rely on its auditors, on us, to prepare a lot of the financial information for them. And it's really an internal allocation of resources and how they focus their time. But because of that relationship and our involvement in the financial statement preparation, we do provide that second comment as well. So the last document, the biggest document, is the comprehensive annual financial report that the city prepares and that we're involved in the preparation as well. And that contains our audit report that has that clean opinion or unmodified opinion that we have concluded on, and that reflects the work basically of the audit and the financial results of the city through September 30th of 2020. So that really concludes the formal prepared remarks of my audit presentation. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions or comments that anyone has.
If there are no questions, then Mr. Moyer, thank you very much for your presentation tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you to everyone.
Item 10, opportunity for public comment, XL2 Chapter 100 plan.
Thank you. The next item on your agenda following this one is approval of the XL2 Chapter 100 plan and bond documents. And bond counsel has advised us that we should always give other taxing entities or anyone who would like to offer an opportunity for public comment prior to council taking action to do so. So at this time, I would ask Ms. Nakahoto if there's anybody who is indicating a desire to speak to the council about the XL2 Chapter 100 plan and bond documents.
If there are any attendees that would like to provide a public comment, please use the raise hand feature or *9 on your phone at this time. Mr. Berlin, I'm not seeing anybody indicate that they would like to provide a public comment on this item.
Thank you.
Item 11, approval of XL2 Chapter 100 plan and bond documents. Bill number 7589, ordinance number 9386.
Thank you. I'll call on the city's financial advisor, Matt Webster of Stifel.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'll refer you back to the resolution 21-010 that you approved on February 16. The documents before you tonight are the result of passing that resolution, and they're before you for final approval by ordinance. There's really two things that you're doing tonight. One is the approval of the Chapter 100 plan, which creates the tax abatement, and then the second thing is the approval of the bond documents, which allow for the Chapter 100 bonds to be issued. Just to reiterate, there have been no changes in the materials that you've seen from before. The same amount of tax abatement, same level of tax abatement. My understanding is that contingent upon the passage of this action tonight, the developer is prepared to begin construction sometime in April on the project in North Kansas City. Just for the record, I'd like to highlight a few things with regard to the Chapter 100. And this Chapter 100 is very similar to other Chapter 100 programs that you've done. The city will be indemnified by the applicant. And the reason that's important is because the city will own the project during the abatement period. So that's been a requirement, and is a requirement of this Chapter 100 as well. The incentive will be in place for approximately 11 years. That covers both the construction period and then 10 years of tax abatement. The city will have no financial liability with respect to the payment on the bonds. The bonds will be paid solely from the lease payments of the developer. And the incentive granted is for sales tax exemption on materials, and then for property tax abatement during the term at a rate of 50%. There will be a pilot paid to the city and the other taxing jurisdictions, which will cover the current taxes on the project area, and so there was a net benefit to the city and taxing jurisdictions from doing this project, and that was part and parcel of the plan that's being presented for approval tonight. There's no financial liability for any cost overruns. That's the developer's responsibility, and the developer is contractually obligated to make the pilot payments in the amounts that we showed in the papers from February 16. We have with us tonight Dirk Dadeline from XL2, but can answer any questions you might have about the project. And again, my understanding is there's nothing that's been changed there. And then we also have bond counsel who can answer any legal questions you might have about the bond documents. With that, I'll open it up for questions if you have them, or for further action.
Councilmember Clevenger and then Councilmember DeLong.
Well, thank you for the recap on this. XL2 has been a great business here in North Kansas City. Question that I have is on this property that they're going to be building on, did they have to do, I have a two-part question. First of all, did they have to do an environmental study of any kind on that land where they're going to build?
I'll let the applicant Dirk Davelight answer that. I'm not sure of the environmental clearances that they've done, but I am sure that the city's protected in respect to any liability.
This is Dave Martin, bond counsel on the transaction. I can actually interject and answer that question. So they have presented phase 1 and phase 2 environmental studies as part of the due diligence that Steve Sparks does in relation to these transactions that they've been presented to him and to myself. And Sparks has also requested, and we have built into the documents, a parent company guarantee of certain provisions under the lease, one of which is the environmental indemnities that the company provides with respect to any loss that might occur on the property. So the city is not on the line for those amounts. So the studies were provided, and additionally, there will be a parent company guarantee with respect to that.
Thank you. And I'm sure as far as, that's my question as far as and this is more of a question for staff on my second part of the question, with the industry that we have, I know we have water monitoring wells to make sure that there's no contaminants in our water. Is there a way that we have, or any kind of structure of monitoring, how our soil is, how our things are going into the PID to make sure there's no additional contaminants? Because I know we've had industries in here before that have seriously contaminated the soil that we've had to clean up. So that's more of a question for staff, either now with an answer at a later date.
We'll try to provide you an answer to that at a later date, sir. The particular location of this is not, immediately next to our water plant, but we'll try to get you an answer to that. Councilmember DeLong.
All right, so I was just going to ask, did we receive any feedback from any of the taxing jurisdictions? And I'm guessing versus some of our other projects, it's probably, and I thought I read we did from the school district maybe, but I couldn't find it again.
We met with the school district and they were in support of the project. None of the other taxing jurisdictions, to my knowledge, had any comment at all. They were all provided with proper notice and given a couple of weeks to ask any questions they might have. And I'm not aware that we had any outreach.
Perfect. I didn't think they would. And I just echo what Councilmember Clevenger really started with there. I think this is a good project. I think this will be good for the city, and good to see this land being redeveloped. And also, I just think this is a good deal. So thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
So I just want to throw in that on page 20 of the attached document, it's kind of got the best analysis of the difference between if we do or don't approve. In a nutshell, the existing tax revenue is about $50,000 a year going through 2031, and it's about $150,000 with the development. So we're looking at around $100,000 extra dollars going in, a large chunk of that going to the school district. So this is a big deal. This is really going to be financially good for North Kansas City and the North Kansas City School District. So big fan of this.
Councilmember DeLong.
Sorry, one more follow-up, basically for clarity from XL2, in case this is the first meeting someone's tuned in again. They're hearing us kick around a lot of numbers. Could you very, very briefly tell us what you're going to be doing on the site?
Mr. Davelight. I'm not sure where Mr. Davelight, what might have happened. Very briefly, sir, what the purpose of this is to provide benefits under the Chapter 100 statute for a standalone facility that XL2 seeks to construct at 101 West 10th Avenue to produce a higher grade of specialty pipe than what it's currently producing in its existing XL2 plant.
There we go. Thank you. No, I did. I wanted to get that out there too, in case someone's just tuning in now. That was the perfect length of time. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
First reading.
Second.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
8-0, motion carried. An ordinance approving a plan for an industrial development project for a steel tube manufacturing facility, authorizing the city of North Kansas City, Missouri to issue its taxable industrial development revenue bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $7 million in connection with such project, authorizing and approving certain documents, and authorizing certain other actions in connection with the issuance of the bonds.
I move that bill number 7589 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9386.
Second.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
8-0, motion carried. An ordinance approving a plan for an industrial development project for a steel tube manufacturing facility, authorizing the city of North Kansas City, Missouri to issue its taxable industrial development revenue bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $7 million in connection with such project, authorizing and approving certain documents, and authorizing certain other actions in connection with the issuance of the bonds. Next, number 12, renewal of agreement with financial advisory firm, resolution number 21-017.
Thank you. I'll call on the city councilor, Tom Barzee.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This wasn't planned this way originally, but it's kind of the perfect night to have this on because of Mr. Webster's role in our work session, and then also his role on the Chapter 100 bond that was just approved with XL2. For many years, the city has had municipal advisory services, and over the years, it's been with a number of different companies. I've spelled them out in the agreement. The agreement that we presently have actually expired last month. It was for a period of 3 years. And so before you this evening is what I guess you would call the renewal of a financial advisory services between the city and Stiefel, Nicholas and Company, of which Mr. Webster and Mr. Holland, Jack Holland, and some of you I know don't know Mr. Holland, but he has been involved in a number of our large projects dating back over the years as well. And I will just add that both Mr. Holland and Mr. Webster are certainly recognized as being among the best in this field in the Kansas City area. And I think the city is lucky to have them. And I believe staff recommend, well, I know staff recommends approval of the agreement for these services. And I would point out that their fees are the same as they were in 2018.
Is that it?
Okay, so if you have any questions, I'll answer them, or Mr. Webster's on still on this, as well as Mr. Berlin. Any of us would be glad to answer your questions.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Question, first of all, really happy with the work that Matt Webster has done, has knowledge of the city. You said that the contract expired, and this is more of a question for staff. Said that the contract expired in February of 2021. And I know Matt Webster's been here tonight, and he was here last meeting in March. So I'm assuming that this what he's doing now isn't covered under the contract until we sign it. But work has already been performed. Why didn't this come to us before it expired is my question.
In all honesty, sir, it slipped by staff, and with all due respect to Matt, I think it slipped by him too, because he notified me about a week ago that he'd heard from his compliance division that it said, hey, this agreement has expired. So we certainly recommend that all the terms be honored, but it's just something that got by us. The original agreement was with George K. Baum, and then it moved over to Stiefel, and so we're sorry that we're bringing it to you a little late.
I know where there are some changes, and I do like that the rates are staying the same. So thank you for that.
Councilmember Smith.
Also like to echo, yeah, I've been very pleased with Matt. He provides excellent financial advice, especially on these complex types of transactions. As far as I had the same question as Zach does, as far as renewals of contracts, board appointments, it seems like we're always about a meeting or a month behind on getting things approved like that. Is there any kind of internal tracking document that staff uses that kind of sets an alert that will say hey, this is coming up in a month or two, let's get it on an agenda?
Yes, sir, there is, and we'll endeavor to try to do better, but we perhaps have slipped occasionally. I think in general we try to do these things in time, but there have been times, and sometimes, to be very honest, it's just a matter of the workload of the city councilor who might not be able to get to review a renewal in time, but we've always assumed that we would honor the terms of a contract even after it's expired, unless there's some reason that we shouldn't.
Okay, I appreciate that. It was always just when I used to audit banks, it was always a recommendation to get that on an automated deal where it would just spit an email to you when something needed to be done. So just we
do have systems in place. I think we've improved it within the last year. So hopefully you'll see improvement in that in the years to come.
Very good. So the other question I have is, so with the hourly rates I'm seeing here, I can appreciate that they haven't changed, gone up. And I believe this goes under our request for qualifications, not for proposal type. But with the way we use Matt and his partners there, I would be a little like as much as we as those hourly rates are, I would wonder if we could use them in a little different way, whether we would call them in as needed in, say, executive sessions, which is where we have the most conversation with them, rather than having them sit through 3-hour-long meetings with us just to answer a question occasionally. If that could be something we discuss maybe at a future meeting. I'm for the contract, but just looking at that as a way that the city's cash outlay would be a little bit less.
Certainly, sir. We don't generally get charged too much by Matt for meeting attendance and such.
Okay.
When setting the agenda, I always try to put agenda items that involve having outside parties, whether they're those we pay or somebody else, come up first in the agenda, and then try to have other items that don't involve outside parties later. And one could argue with the order in which I put them on the agenda, but I try to be conscious of those things as we do it. But there are numerous agenda items that often involve outside parties that either we pay or somebody else pays. And as I said, we try to get them on early.
Appreciate that.
Councilmember Tull.
I think probably the decades-long relationship is part of why he's willing to do the meetings, like you said, without charging a lot. I know that Jesse touched on this, professional contracts you don't put out to bid, but I'm wondering if sticking with the same person who obviously is at the top end of people that get paid, do you ever check in with other firms to see if we're kind of right on track? And then also, I've asked for how much we spent on this over the last 5 years. And the last 3 years, there was only 5,000 in 2017. Then we have 117,000, 243,000, 102,000. So I'm wondering if rates are going to stay, if that's how much we're spending on this service, if you see these last 3 years as being higher because of special reasons, that's one thing. But if you think we're going to hit the $100,000 range, it might be good to look at options of doing things in-house or other creative ways of doing things in the future. Do you have any thoughts on that?
the kind of, to be very honest, the specialty of the work that Mr. Webster does is not work that city staff has the ability to do. There's a lot of we have a lot.
I don't mean current city staff taking on the work that he's doing. I mean, hiring someone that would be able to do the work that he was doing if we were going to be spending, you know, over 100,000 every year.
I don't believe that there would be a person that we would hire and pay a salary to that would do the kind of work that Mr. Webster does. They typically do work for the kind of firm that he works for. Matt, I don't know if you'd like to comment on that, but.
Yeah, so Councilman Toll, yeah, just to give you some additional color on that, even the largest cities such as Kansas City, Missouri, don't have internal staff that can do the kind of work I do, because as Eric mentioned, there's not enough volume even in a city like that to keep somebody busy, and with the skill set they can, you know, serve multiple clients, and so they tend to end up in firms like mine. That's just the reality of the business.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Just for a little institutional knowledge, I think, you know, a lot of it pertains to how many development projects and what we have going on in the city. The past 5 years, we've really bumped up. I mean, we've got a lot of projects going on. You know, in the early planning stages, it wasn't quite so much, but now that it's getting more down to getting these projects started, I think that's why the increased cost. Now, will we have that every year? I'm not sure, but I would expect it to fluctuate depending on how many projects that we utilize their services for.
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Sorry, yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
8-0, motion carries. Number 13, short-term conditional use permit, 5th annual Brandon Russell Flash Dash Run.
Thank you. So the city has received a request. It's been requested that the city council consider an application for a short-term conditional use permit for the Flash Dance Run, the 5th annual Brandon Russell Flash Dance Run. According to the current emergency order that's in place, that run could not be held because there is we do have a part of the city's emergency order that says that there cannot be a gathering of more than 50 people on city-owned property unless it's run by the city, which in this case it wouldn't be. But it has been requested that the council discuss this. I think in large part, and I'll allow the applicant to speak about it, in that they are hoping to reserve the date in the event that the city's order might be relaxed by May 22nd, which is the date that they are looking for. So I guess I'll go ahead and call on Councilmember Smith first, and then I was going to go ahead and call on Patty Russell from representing the 5K run. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, and Patty, I appreciate all the correspondence you sent our way, and I read everything that Eric sent over. It looks like, and if anybody didn't get or read those, it looks like we're looking to pencil it in, not necessarily confirm it wholeheartedly right now because it wouldn't fit within the order. But in reading through what they're planning to do, there's a ton of precautions being taken, in addition to the fact that by late May, the floodgates are going to be open on vaccinations. We're looking at, I believe, I mean, I've talked with Fire Chief Hargis. We're putting through so many people at the Cerner site. And then I'm getting messages from Liberty, from the state, from, Hy-Vee is opening up spots, CVS. So the vaccines are really, really ramping up and rolling out. I do imagine by that point, we'll have relaxed the gathering limit, especially outdoors. So I see no reason we couldn't at least pencil this in the event that happens. So I would support putting it on the calendar.
Councilmember DeLong.
I guess I would just, I don't know if it's staff or Councilmember Smith, how would you anticipate us giving like a final approval though? I guess that would be the next, do you see us as having like a hard date where we come back by mid-April and say, yes, this is fine, no, this is fine, or just let the emergency orders play their course?
That perhaps on April 20th, we could revisit the emergency order and whether you want to keep that limit in as far as gatherings. Would that be something that might work for the council? Okay, well, we will plan on doing that. Councilmember Saper?
Couldn't we at this point give our approval pending change in the public health order? We could do it tonight.
I believe that's what is being requested. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we could go ahead with that without putting it off further.
Yeah. Yes, sir. But we would need to bring you some kind of action on the emergency health order itself, which is what I was speaking of.
Oh, okay. That's true.
Councilmember DeLong?
I guess I didn't follow up. I would be fine with penciling this in. Then yeah, just keeping track. Because just looking at KC Running Company's website, I mean, there's already several 5Ks scheduled in April as well. So it might be a good, something to look at and see how those events fared. Thank you.
Ms. Russell, did you wish to speak to your application? Or anyone from the Russell family?
Yes, this is Patty Russell. I'm here with Dr. Steve Russell. And even more than just, we really would appreciate the approval pending tonight, just because it takes so much time in planning, but we could still get it done. We've done it before. So more than anything, we're so passionate because this is the 5th annual race, and every year it's been in May in North Kansas City. And it's not just about the memory of Brandon, who was also a North Kansas City for sure resident, but the money that we raise for this foundation goes to so many great causes for Children's Mercy. Even last year when we had to do the COVID, because we are so respectful of all the protective measures that you had to take, we still raised $13,000. We're able to raise $13,000 in 2020 to give to Children's Mercy, where we were just a part of that new edition. But more importantly, even this race is professionally run, professionally planned, organized, supervised, carried out, everything, but pending, of course, the approval of our North Kansas City board. We're so appreciative. We just want to make this Brandon Russell, we want to make it a tradition, like all the other races that are going on every year, the Father's Day race, the trolley run, even Northland. We went to E.L. Young, we went to English Landing, but they were all taken in May. But first we went to North Kansas City to get that. So if we could get that approval tonight, that would be so huge that we would be able to move forward in getting a registration out anyway. So it's, we're just asking for that variance. You saw our guidelines. We'll stagger the starts, protective masks, everybody remain in their car for 20 minutes. We'll send out waves, no awards ceremony. We're just so passionate about this race, not only for us as a family, but for the money that we can raise for North Kansas City and other charitable foundations, and for North Kansas City. And Steve himself, Dr. Russell, he's been a hardcore member at North Kansas City Hospital since he was age 16. So we're all so part of North Kansas City. Would you like to speak?
Hello, Steve Russell. I'm also the medical director for your North Kansas City Fire and Ambulance. I think Chief Hargis may be there. Currently at North Kansas City Hospital, we only have 10 active COVID patients. Back in January, it was in the 120-30 range. So I think we're getting to that point where things are going to open up. They're vaccinating around 2.5 million people every day in this country. And with all the people that have had it, all the people that have been vaccinated, I think 60 days from now that I'm very optimistic that we're going to be in the clear and be in a safe zone that things can happen again. And we all look forward to that. But I can tell you just from firsthand experience, I've only seen in the last 2 weeks, I've only taken care of one patient in the ER that was positive for COVID. We're just not seeing the numbers like we did. Yeah, the vaccine's working. We're doing a good job. And especially the hospital in conjunction with Cerner and Liberty Hospital, the number of we have a well-oiled program that has absolutely made a big difference in this area.
So thank you so much for, as a family, as part of the North Kansas City community for considering our May 22nd date.
So is there a motion to approve the short-term conditional use permit provided that the city's emergency health order allows for it on that date?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yep.
Councilmember Toll,
Absolutely.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
8-0, motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you as a family. Thank you.
Very good.
Item 14, approval of final plat 23rd and Swift Apartments, bill number 7588, ordinance number 9385.
Thank you. I'll call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This plat concerns an approximately 6-acre parcel located at 23rd and Swift. The Planning Commission held the public hearing and approved the preliminary plat for this development on December 3rd. At its March 4th meeting, the Planning Commission reviewed the final plat and found it to be in conformance with the approved preliminary plat and unanimously recommended approval of the final plat to you. This final plat would dedicate additional right-of-way to the city along 23rd and 25th Avenues and Buchanan Street to accommodate planned angled parking along the street. And it also dedicates public sidewalk easements along 23rd and 25th Avenues. These dedications have been reviewed by Public Works Department and the city's on-call engineer. I would ask for your approval of this and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
First reading.
Second.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Symbolic? No.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
7-1, motion carried. An ordinance approving the final plat of 23rd Swift Apartments in the city of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7588 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9385.
Second.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Symbolic? No.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
7-1, motion carried. An ordinance approving the final plat of 23rd and Swift Apartments in the city of North Kansas City, Missouri. Number 15, approval of questions for NKC Development Discussion Questionnaire.
Thank you. At its meeting of February 16th, City Council indicated its desire to conduct a special meeting on development in North Kansas City on May 25th and to obtain public input in advance in writing. So now presented for council approval are the proposed questions for the questionnaire to be used to obtain input that would be put online. Our intention after receiving whatever input you provide us tonight would be to have a final version on your April 6th agenda to make sure that we've got whatever input you give us tonight exactly right. So with that, we open it up to any input you have on the questionnaire. Councilmember Smith.
Okay, I think this is a pretty good questionnaire. Under the vision themes, particularly, I think there'd be a space for some commentary specific to each vision theme. Number two being the example that I would go to. Number two being attract new residents and increase home ownership rates. For example, they could agree that we've attracted new residents and disagree that we've increased home ownership rates, something along those lines. And that the choices given don't allow for that variance. I would be pretty unclear how to answer that if I felt that way. So being able to put in something under each vision theme that would allow for a typed comment of some kind, I think would be useful. Under the incentives portion, pull this up. Economic development incentive portion. I'd like to see a multi-answer question because as we were talking about earlier, incentives can be used to guide developments toward priorities that the city considers important. We'd like to hear from the residents, giving a list of choices, things like getting rid of blight, promoting affordable housing, et cetera, what priorities they put for the use of incentives. Under what sort of criteria would residents like to see use of incentives? And that can be a ranked. I know there are questions where it can kind of give you the output as a graph that shows how strongly some of these are favored or not. I'd like to see something like that. And then the final piece I have is just a catch-all at the very end, just an open spot for any additional comments. With the Armor Road piece, there's a lot of multiple choice, multiple answers, but some of the best insights that we got on that one was from the very last question that said, tell us whatever else you haven't covered at this point. And I know that all of these additional comments can lead to more data, but I think we're all willing to take some time and read through that and really find out what people are having to say rather than try to parse what they meant by whether, they were highly aligned with our incentives or not.
So if I may, under on your economic development, long-term, under long-term planning and economic development questions, we tried to add, if we had 3 open-ended questions, we can certainly add a 4th that would just say any other general comments you'd like to make. But yeah, I'm not sure I'm quite following your first suggestion. And I'm not sure how can you help me with understanding how you would craft?
So the first one under the vision themes.
Sure. And we can add comments at the end of each vision theme, if you like. We can add, something, any general comments about the vision themes. I think that's what I understood.
That's kind of where I'm at. Just added a comment section under that, because like going back to vision theme 2, I have no idea how I would even answer that one. Because if the goal was increasing home ownership rates, well, we haven't really done that. But if it's to attract new residents, we certainly have. So how would someone answer those? They can't both strongly agree and disagree. So having a spot to put in, what they thought about it would be.
Yeah, so at the end of each vision theme, we can sort of ask a question. Do you have any general comments about this vision theme? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's my suggestion. Yeah.
Right. Where I was a little confused was on when you got to the economic development incentive questions, and you were talking about trying to allow people to give weight. Would you mind elaborating? Because I'm not quite sure what it is you're asking us to do.
So under economic development incentive, in economic development incentive questions section, there's actually only one question there. And it's, how well do you think the city's economic development incentive goals are aligned with community priorities? And they only get one shot to answer that. And I have no idea what somewhat unaligned would tell us. So if that's what the general consensus was either neutral or somewhat aligned, somewhat unaligned, which is where I see it falling somewhere in that continuum. What does that mean? And the follow-up question I would want to ask is, okay, if it's somewhat unaligned, what goals are we missing? So giving them, I don't know, 15 or 20 things that are goals for economic development and saying, pick the ones that are your goals, click, and you can answer as many of them as you want and see where that lines out. So it would spit us a graph at the top, goals that people have for use of economic development incentives.
Okay, well, if you look right above that, it says the most favorable consideration of a requested economic development incentive will be given to applications which, and that comes right from the incentive policy.
Right.
So, I mean, would it make sense to use those 9 criteria then?
Could use those 9. And then, I mean, there are some that aren't even goals in our master plan. I'm trying to, let's see.
So these are from the ED incentive plan.
Okay. Now, there's some that aren't. So do we have, is affordable housing even listed in that?
It's not currently part of our economic development incentive policy.
So something like that, right? Like if we were going to use an economic development incentive, do people want to see an affordable housing element to that? Do they want us to incentivize? I don't know. I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but what are they looking for when we deploy those incentives? Because a lot of the pushback I'm hearing is, okay, we're handing this money to developers. What are the residents getting out of it? And maybe even give them a spot to type in other right, here are the things, that kind of thing.
So perhaps at the end of the section, you as you noted, there's only one question we asked. Perhaps again, we try to ask for general comments there on, would that be?
Yeah, you could ask for general comments, or you could line out those 9 and toss in affordable housing or anything else that could be incentivized and have people just check those boxes. If for example, there's the 9 and then there's affordable housing. If that's not something that people are prioritizing, it should bear out in the data. But I'm not going to learn anything from the answer to this question.
Okay, so I think I understand what you're asking. You'd like us to maybe have boxes to check in which of these are, rank these in order of importance to you. Is that what you're suggesting?
It could be ranked
and add an affordable housing item.
That could be rank in order of importance, or it could just be check a box next to one that matters to you, that is something that is important to you. And then it'll show 200 people took the thing, 200 check this box, 170 check this box, and it would line out a graph of what people are really, really honing in on.
Okay, we can work on that. Councilmember Tull?
I would kind of go back to Vision Theme 2. The feedback I'm getting a lot, and Jesse probably is as well, is that we're not really working towards more home ownership. So I would like that to be split into Vision Theme 2A and Vision Theme 2B, so we can get an accurate feedback from the public of how important is it that we're offering home ownership. I know in the last 3 parcels of city-owned land, those are apartments that are going in. So the feedback that I'm getting is it doesn't look like we're working on this. So if you split that up between Vision Theme 2A, attract new residents, Vision Theme 2B, increase home ownership, I think we'd get a more accurate assessment of the residents. Is that possible?
I'll ask Sarah to comment. I guess my only concern is that we're using language that's sort of specifically in the plan, and I hate
in the plan, but there's really 2 pieces of the plan.
Right.
I mean, you wrote it with 2 pieces of the plan, right? Or the city wrote it, or we adopted it. There's 2 pieces there. So if we're going to use this information, I think we can split those apart so we can see the feedback.
All right. So if we split this, then we would ask the 3 questions that follow, plus adding a comment section on each of those. So if I'm understanding you correctly. So
you are.
Okay. All right. We can work on that. Are there any Councilmember Clark?
I was just going to say I love those suggestions. I also wanted to see some open comments because it is tricky because people can just select one and then hold all their thoughts for Facebook or something. I do love the development process questions. What is your level of involvement? That's a great question. That's all I have to say.
Councilmember Smith.
Under the tell us a little more about yourself, I might like to see resident broken into resident I own a home in North Kansas City, resident I rent in North Kansas City. Would tell us a little more about the perspective and how much we're actually hearing from, because one of the allegations is that tenants are less involved. Are we hearing from people who rent, or are we only hearing the voices of people who own homes?
All right, we can add an item for that to split out residents and homeowners, or renters and homeowners, excuse me. Is there any other input? All right. Then we will work on incorporating these suggestions and bring them back to you for hopefully final approval on April 6th, so that we can finalize it and put it online. I guess we can move on to the next item. Thank you.
Item 16, Mackin Park Ball Field Diamond number 1 bids.
Thank you. So as the council is aware, we have a cooperative agreement with the North Kansas City School District to renovate Ball Field Diamond number 1 at Mackin Park and install artificial turf there. Clark and Anderson was selected as the architect for this project some time ago. We do have Sean Ray of Clark and Anderson on the call if you have any questions for him as we go forward. We took bids back in September. They were over $500,000 over budget. And so the council directed that we rebid it after the first of the year, offering more lead time to bidders. Hopefully that would bring down costs. In the meantime, the architect worked with the design review committee that's been established, which contains members of the city council, park board, and the school district. Worked on doing a little bit of value engineering, also removing some items that were originally in the base bid, making them alternates. We did take bids on February 18th. And once again, the base bids were very considerably over budget. In the memo in your packet, we're now indicating to you that with a 5% contingency based upon the bids of the lowest and best bidders, which we can talk about if you have any questions, that we see a project budget to get this project done for construction of some $1,378,248, which leaves us a budget gap when you combine the amount that's either been spent or has been committed, and combine that with construction cost, leaves a budget gap of some $387,292. I went to the North Kansas City School District and I suggested to them that if they were willing to cover half of that budget overage, that I could recommend to the city council that the city might cover the other half of the budget overage, since it does seem that there is a lot of support for getting this project accomplished. I just heard from the school district today, the school district administration, which did indicate that I think they'd have to go to their board, but they are willing to recommend to their board that they do that, that we split that amount. So that would be some $193,646 each. So if the council is interested in proceeding in that matter, then what I would plan to do is at your April 6th meeting, bring you, the idea would bring you 2 items. 1, award a contract on the base bids, and 2, a revised agreement with the school district with a revised amount and a revised term of years that they would have to pay their half back to the city. I guess I'll pause at this point and ask if you have any questions. I think Councilmember Stewart, Long, Smith, and Tull, and Saper.
Yeah, I do. Since the school board has agreed to foot half that overage, I support this. I was on the committee along with Jesse. I still think it'd be a class ball field for the school, but not only for the school. If that's holding anybody back, once you complete this project, if we do, you're going to attract leagues like Ben Johnson back here that used to play years ago when I was a kid. You know, Ben Johnson had all the big teams, and there's probably other leagues now too, senior leagues and such. But, you know, at least the school is offering to pitch in on this. And, you know, I think, you know, they put a lot of money in the new school. That's a commitment for as long as we're going to live, probably. And I think the least we do is give their home field something to be proud of. I mean, look at their football stadium. That's historical almost, and it's a really nice place with synthetic turf. And baseball, you know, there's the redheaded stepchild, I guess, of sporting events maybe, but they deserve it too, in my opinion. And I do support this. I would not have supported it if the school district did not want to help with the overage. That's all I got.
Councilmember DeLong.
I was going to ask, what are the dugout walls exactly? Is that a difference between it being like a chain link fence and a solid surrounding around the dugout, or is that a separate?
So you're speaking of the alternate number 4.
Yes.
Sean Rake, may I ask you to comment on the dugout walls?
Yeah, I can comment on that. The base bid, so with the revised design, the base bid was a chain link fence around the dugouts. We do have alternate pricing from the recommended low bidder to add CMU walls around those dugouts to make them, to beef them up a little bit, make them look a little bit nicer. The dugouts are using a prefab roof system with posts to hold up the roof. So whether it's chain link or it's CMU, that roof structure will remain.
No, as I just look at this, I'd be curious. You know, I know they want to look at the alternatives separately, but at least a couple of those, you know, if we really want to get the benefits we think we're going to get. I mean, I think a press box helps. Having dugouts actually enclosed helps. Why not go ahead and include a couple of those when you ask the school district as well?
I can go back, sir, if you like, but I have to tell you that I think it was a substantial ask of the school district to ask them to fund another $200,000. I did not believe that they, based upon all the discussions that have occurred, I was very doubtful, and I am very doubtful that they would agree to fund alternates in addition to almost $200,000 over on the base bid. If you ask me to go back, I will, but I don't anticipate that we would have a successful result with that.
Okay, thank you.
I think if the city council and or the park board want to fund alternates, I think you would be best off to consider that would be a fully city expense.
Okay, generally I'll just go ahead and say generally I agree with the direction you're going here. That would be my only. But if you don't think that's viable, then that's not viable. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
So, okay, there's a lot of moving parts here. I would be behind getting this done pending the school board final approval of splitting the difference. To Brian's question we just asked, the alternatives that you're seeing here, those were pulled out of the original plan when we were like substantially over budget. These were pulled out so they could get bid separately. We could see what those cost pieces were. I was kind of hoping that total number would come back to the ball field design committee to say, okay, now that we're seeing these, we should package them together before it went to council and school districts so that we could do what you just said and ask for the split. Now that we've asked for it, that ship may have sailed, as Eric indicates. So Eric, do you have any indication from the Parks Board other than that they might be interested in using funds to fund the alternatives? And if so, which ones they're looking at?
Well, as you say, there are a lot of moving parts. My thought was that pending council action tonight, I might ask, the park board's already had one special meeting on this, but might ask them to meet again and to advise the council as to what either they would ask the city to do or what they are willing to do with their funds. So I was between now and April 6th, I thought I would ask the Parks and Recreation Director to see if she could schedule one more special meeting of the park board to get some exact input on that.
Okay.
But they were waiting, I believe, until they knew what the council was willing to do.
Okay. And can you remind me where we landed on, is it the city or the Parks Board that's looking to pay for the maintenance building at this point?
That is another question that I would want to ask the park board. If you were willing to, I'm sure, you know, I was going to get to that next. The current low bid on that is in the amount of $208,500, and which is over the available budget. But that was something that the city was planning to pay for. The budget for it was $167,160, but it was something that the city was going to pay for, and that was my next question to you after we discussed the base bid for the field.
Yeah, because I know there was some discussion of the Parks Board covering that cost and funneling the money back into the to cover the ball field situation. So if we could reignite that, that would be wonderful. That way we may end up with a press box that we could pay for and still save a little money in the city coffers. Gosh, I had one more thing on this. The alternate for the dugout walls. I think, I know you've asked the school district. That would be a $15,000 expense to them. I don't remember pulling that out as an alternate because it's just not meeting with the aesthetic of the field we're trying to build to have chain link fence walls on the dugout. Honestly, like that one doesn't feel like an alternate to me. If that could be thrown back in the bid for final approval of the school board with that final number, I guess it would bump it up $15,000. Really get behind that because it's not going to feel the same if we've got chain link on the walls.
Sir, if you tell me I have to go back to the school district with yet another ask, I will. But I have to tell you, this is a tough negotiation as it was. I would like you to not direct staff to go back and ask for yet more money than I've suggested to them.
What is the split now in the excess? So we've got
$193,000, $696 each. I think it's $696.
Yeah, 646.
Yeah, 646.
Okay. Either way, if we're going to move forward, I would move that we go with the dugout wall. The school's going to pay for it or not. I'd like to see them cover half of it. I think that would be a good faith move by them. But if you're telling us that 15 is going to wreck the deal, then it's not worth pushing.
No. I just think that in the spirit of the conversations that have occurred, for me to go back yet again is a good way for us to proceed.
Do we have any reps from the school board here tonight?
I don't believe so. No, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilmember Tall.
Yes, I thought I knew what I was talking about, but he said the storage building. So he said the maintenance building, which must not be the same as the storage building.
No, that's a different one.
No, the storage building was an alternate number 3. Shown on page 3 of your memo. The maintenance building addition was an item that you had some extensive discussion with the architect about a few months ago, as you may recall.
That's why I thought maybe they put in a different building and didn't try to tie it in as much. So were there always going to be 2 buildings built, the maintenance building and a storage building? Because I thought there was just one. 2?
Sean, can you address that question?
Yeah, that's a good question. To kind of clarify, that alternate number 3 storage building was to provide storage for the high school. The design of the maintenance building addition that was bid does include a small room for storage within it that would have the same function. So it's almost an either or.
Okay, because the mound is removable, right? Like we have to have a place to put it.
Yeah. So it's that alternate number 3 is providing storage that if the maintenance building addition did not occur, that's where the high school would have their storage.
So we have to get one of those 2 things in order to have a spot to put the removable field pieces, or no?
Well, there is storage at the far north, the northwest corner of the field, but the storage here would be to kind of take place of the existing shed that the high school has on site that's on the south side of the field.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilmember Saper.
I know that we've got some estimates of soft revenue from teams that'd be playing there and eating in our restaurants, things like that. Do we have any estimates of any harder revenue? Like how many teams would actually rent the facility from us? I know the school district has a certain benefit they'll be getting. What is the revenue that we could anticipate from this ball field?
Well, I don't know that I could answer the question, but it would go to Parks and Recreation. I can tell you that it wouldn't be a city revenue.
Okay, but do we have any idea how much they would be getting?
No, sir. I don't have a number I could give you tonight. I think that's speculative to some degree.
All right.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Couple of quick questions. To add some context on the maintenance building, I think that was more for storing Parks and Rec vehicles, or if I remember correctly, it was going to tie into the other maintenance building that they have there now, which some of us voted against that and some of us voted for it. I think the majority voted for it. My question is, as far as the negotiations, when we knew we were over budget, and I know, Eric, you said you went to the school district, would it may have been better to have this meeting first before we go to the school district? Because I kind of agree with Jesse on some of these things. Like if it's storage for like school district stuff that they're going to be using, then I think they should pay for that. You know, we're definitely both parties are putting in a lot of money. I want this project to go forward, and you know, I want the dugouts to look nice, and I want it to be as quality as we can afford. But I'm kind of confused on the negotiations as to if you could explain why you went to the school district before bringing it to council with any other type of negotiations. Usually we come to council first. I'm just curious as to that.
Because we had limited time, sir. I mean, the bids are only good for 60 days. I was doing the best I could to try to get you something to consider tonight. If you would like to, I will do anything you like in terms of going back to the school district. I will be happy to stand out of the negotiations, turn it over to any council committee that believes it can do better. I was trying to do the best on the timetable that we have for action.
Okay.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, a couple things. You know, one of the reasons he went to the school board first, he had to be able to tell us what their opinion was for our meeting tonight. You know, that ship has sailed. If you didn't get on it, you know, it's too late. You know, he has to be able to tell us what the school board would do. And that's what he did. And on the dugouts, I agree with Jesse. You know, if you're going to do a proper field, a class field, you got to have enclosed dugout. Even we have to pay it ourselves. You know, we can't keep going back. You know, you can't go back to the school board again. I mean, you're talking about the best we could possibly do now is the 2022 season now. And it won't take much more to push us into 2023. So, you know, I think we know enough to make a decision, yes or no. I mean, I don't care how you vote, but let's get it done.
How did he, I mean, go ahead.
Go ahead, Councilmember Clevenger, and then Councilmember Delon.
I was just going to say, you know, and he also needed to know what we wanted to do too. So I know it's kind of a back and forth, and it's a difficult decision. I wasn't trying to call anybody out, but I just wanted some clarification on how the negotiation process went down. Thanks.
No, I was just going to clarify. This has not gone before the school board. You've talked to someone within the school administration.
No, but I believe they are stating with a fair amount of confidence that they believe that their board will accept their recommendation.
Okay,
But I don't believe that the board has had it on their agenda, no, sir.
Okay. No, thank you. Yeah, and I definitely support getting the base side of this done.
Councilmember Smith and then Councilmember Tull.
Right. I'm all for moving forward. I think that if we can get the Parks Board on the same page with this, that and I feel like they want a top tier facility as well. There's three legs to this, and I think everyone's moving in the same direction. It's really going to come down to how we split out the costs. I think, Eric, you're probably right that we've got where we're going to get with the school board. Let's get that done. If we're prioritizing alternatives, 4 is top, and then the press box, and then the rest of it. So if we can put that priority when we talk with the Parks Board. I don't know how that conversation works. I think that would be the way to go. And if they don't have the money to cover those two alternatives, then we could possibly step in and cover that cost. But I'd really like to see this be a top tier facility, like Rick said. So 2 and 4 get back added in. It's a lot of money. I understand, but I think we move forward with this. And thanks for taking it to the school board, Eric. I know that couldn't have been a fun conversation.
So, I mean, I'll be happy. I'm just trying to figure out how to proceed from here. I mean, I will ask the park board sometime in the next 3 weeks to meet. I'm going to urge any council member that's interested in this item to please attend that meeting. We can put these on your agenda and you can decide on each for award at your next meeting based upon whatever input the park board provides you. So we'll sort of probably have a number of different motions before you, one, the base bid, and then probably, you know, different motions on each of the alternates and also on the maintenance building addition. And by then you'll have some, I hope, understanding of what the park board either is asking for or is willing to do.
Very useful.
So, okay, Councilmember Clevenger, Clark, and Slaper.
Just a quick question for finalization. You said at the next meeting, and you were saying April 6th, but did we not reschedule that for the 7th?
That's on your, I'm assuming April 6th until you address that item later in your agenda.
Oh, that's right. It's later on tonight. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Clark.
For a special meeting with the Parks Board, is it best that I can bring this forward? That from the council's perspective, we're looking to see if they are willing to cover the costs of the maintenance building, or at least maybe the alternative is that they remove a portion of the cost of the maintenance building and cover then the upgraded costs for the dugouts. And we agree to do our split with the school district as a possibility. Because I think we're still, as Jesse mentioned too, we're still maybe covering the cost of the maintenance building or, you know, helping to fund that, and that they haven't taken that on themselves, like back onto their plate so that we can help fund this, correct?
I'm not sure. I'm sorry, ma'am. Correct. I mean, they now, having known that the council is willing to fund the base bid, I think these other questions are before them and they can decide what they feel like their budget might allow in terms of saying, here's what we would be willing to fund, whether it was the maintenance building addition or some alternate. So all of those.
I'm happy to throw that out there to them too during the meeting. So,
Councilmember Saper.
Back to the third leg, the school district. Do we know when they will actually consider this proposal that we put before them through you?
I'm sorry, sir, I haven't gotten that date, but I'll find that out tomorrow.
Hey, will it be fairly soon? Because you did say there was a time limit, time is running, the clock is ticking on the proposal, on the bids rather.
I will do my best to get confirmation from the school district administration that the board will have considered and made a decision on that prior to the next scheduled council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Tall.
I was just going to agree with everyone else that already said, I think the dugout walls are pretty important to keep the look that they're going for. And, you know, it's just a little bit more than the investment we're already making. Do you need a motion, Eric, to approve this part and then we'll tease out the alternates later? Or you just need it?
I think I have your consensus on the base bid.
Okay,
that you'd like to proceed. I believe I'm hearing that. I also understand we don't have consensus on any of the other moving parts yet. That's my understanding. So I don't think I need a motion at this point unless you'd like to make one.
Nope, that's fine.
Is there any other discussion of this agenda item? All right, thank you. Like as I say, I think, you know, one way or another, it would be necessary to make some final decisions at your next council meeting. Can we move on to the next item, please?
Item 17, approval of tree planting services contract, resolution number 21-015.
Thank you. I'll call on the Public Works Director, Pat Hauber. Pat, were you ready for this or would you like me to cover it?
I'm sorry, I had the mute on. The city contracted with Sunset Landscapes for tree planting services in October of 2018, and the expiration date is October 17th, 2021. Over the past 2 years, the staff has not been pleased with the quality of services they provided and determined it's in the city's best interest to discontinue Sunset Landscape services and seek a new planting contractor. On February 5th, an advertisement for bids was published for tree planting services. 4 bids were received and opened on March 4th, and the lowest bid was submitted by Sunset Landscapes in the amount of $275 per tree. Staff acknowledges their bid was the lowest, but determined it was not the best bid because of the past performance. After reviewing other bids, staff deemed that the lowest and best bid was submitted by American Lawn and Landscape in the amount of $320 per tree. American Lawn and Landscape had a tree planting contract with the city from 2015 to 2018, and staff was pleased with their services and the quality of trees they provided. The 2021 Transportation Fund budget includes $30,000 for tree planting this year. The current balances for tree planting is $11,685. American Lawn and Landscape's bid of $320 per tree will allow up to 36 trees to be planted this spring. A resolution approving the contract with American Lawn and Landscape has been prepared for consideration of approval by council. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Councilmember Clevenger, and then Councilmember Tall.
I think it's just important to note that in this contract, these trees have a 1-year warranty. A couple of quick questions is, first of all, with the new trees, I'm assuming we as the city, I think they put a bag around them with water filled to make sure that they don't dry out and die so that we can keep them watered and living through the hot summer if we plant them in the spring or the fall. Another question is I know at one point we had a tree inventory done to note all the trees that we have in the city and what their status is, if they're in good condition, bad condition, what have you. When was the last time that was done? And do we anticipate doing that in the future? Because I know some of the dead trees that we may be replacing, I don't know, what's our inventory? Do we know what trees that have totally died that need to be replaced that Sunset planted? That's my question.
Well, good questions. Number one, yes, we do put water bags on those trees to help them survive the first summer. Regarding the tree inventory, we had that, I think 2 years ago. It was maybe 3, but it's pretty much up to date, and we have a great idea of which trees are dying. But we always have a better idea after the tree leaves out in the spring. So we've identified approximately 70 right now that need to be removed.
Councilmember Tall.
Zach kind of touched on this. I know that those trees are guaranteed because we talked about this last time that we were talking about all the dead trees in the wheelie park. Do we still get the dead trees that were planted last year by the company we're no longer going with? Will they still replace those trees that are under the 1-year warranty?
Yes, according to Mr. Barzee, they're still liable for replacement of the trees, even though we may be changing the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
8-0, motion carried. Number 18, budget amendment, construction of new sidewalk on Fayette Street, resolution number 21-018.
Thank you. At this meeting of March 2nd, the City Council directed staff to bring forward a budget amendment to enable the construction of a sidewalk on the west side of Fayette Street between 26th Avenue and 27th Avenue. Accordingly, before the City Council is a resolution to amend the Transportation Fund budget in the amount of $14,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Let's get him a sidewalk.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
8-0, motion carried. Number 19, amendment to agreement with Northland Festivals surplus radios, resolution number 21-016.
Thank you. The city's budget includes funds in the police department's capital outlay line for the purchase of new handheld and in-car radios. The radios being replaced have reached the end of their service life. They're no longer serviced by Motorola in the event of failures, and they'd required additional expense to have them reprogrammed and made available for resale through the annual city auction. The police department does not believe it's cost effective to take on this expense with an unknown return on the investment from having them in the auction. So we have actually transferred several over to municipal services and had them reprogrammed for municipal services use. Northland Festivals, who puts on Snake Saturday, has expressed interest in using 10 of the radios for its use in and around the Snake Saturday parade and related festivities. So the First Amendment to the contract services agreement with Northland Festivals would allow for this to occur. We do recommend approval. Are there any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
I'm sorry, I couldn't get unmuted. Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
8-0, motion carried. Number 20, appointment of municipal judge, bill number 7590, ordinance number 9387.
Thank you. The position of municipal judge is appointed by the mayor and approved by the council for a term of 2 years. City has a contract with the municipal judge establishing certain terms, including salary. Presented for council consideration is an ordinance reappointing municipal judge Stephen Fuller. The terms of the agreement with Judge Fuller are the same as for the previous term.
First reading.
Second.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll.
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay. Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, Your Honor.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
and Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
An ordinance approving appointment of Stephen R. Fuller as municipal judge and adopting a contract by and between the city of North Kansas City, Missouri and Stephen R. Fuller for professional legal services to serve as municipal judge of the city.
I move the bill number 7590 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9387.
Second.
Councilmember DeLong,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Farr.
Yes, ma'am.
8-0, motion carried. An ordinance approving appointment of Stephen R. Fuller as municipal judge and adopting a contract by and between the city of North Kansas City, Missouri and Stephen R. Fuller for professional legal services to serve as municipal judge of the city. Number 21, discussion of rescheduling April 6, 2021 city council meeting.
Move to approve. Oh.
What are you moving to approve now? Are you moving to approve a
That we
change
move
of
it to April 7th
April 7th?
instead of the 6th. Sorry, I'm moving right along. Yeah, that we move it to the 7th instead of the 6th. But I'll let Rick chime in.
Why are we moving it? Every year it falls on the same day, election day, first Tuesday. Go ahead, Jesse.
Yeah, I'm super for moving this. It's very frustrating, especially as someone who's up for re-election, to sit in a meeting on election night, not paying attention, watching the votes roll in. It's just not a great situation. So I'm curious why we're moving it to the 7th and not the 5th. because having the election on the 6th, some of us up here may win or lose, and it wouldn't be ideal to be making decisions on the 7th after having lost a municipal election. So I'm curious why the 7th versus the 5th.
Yeah, court's on Monday.
Okay.
6 o'clock on.
What's that?
6 o'clock on court.
Okay. That makes sense. 7th it is.
Well, you might as well change the 1st April every year already. I mean, I don't care, but it's going to happen every year.
Yep.
I think that's the intent, is to.
Councilmember DeLong.
Yeah, I would add to that. I would think that would be a good idea to move it every year, because when talk about consultant staff, you want to give everyone an ample opportunity to make sure they're voting and focused on voting. It's such an important duty that we have. So to me, it would make sense that if staff also wasn't having to worry about meetings that night. So
we could bring forward an ordinance for your consideration, changing that date every year.
I will have it to you before the lame duck meeting. Thank you.
We'll bring forward an ordinance at a future meeting.
Okay, that'll work too. I will second Amy's motion.
Yeah, second.
Okay. Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Sure.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Why not?
8-0, motion carries. Number 22, approving accounts due and payable by the city through March 12th, 2021. Bill number 7591, ordinance number 9388.
First reading.
Second.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yeah.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
8-0, motion carried. An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through March 12th, 2021.
I move the bill number 7591 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9388.
Second.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
8-0, motion carried. An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through March 12th, 2021.
Thank you. The next item is staff comments. We have numerous reports actually in your packet for your perusal. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions if you have any about them. And at this time, I'd like to call on the Public Works Director, Pat Hauber.
Thank you. I just want to say this is my last council meeting, and I've got a few things I just want to say as briefly as I can. I grew up in North Kansas City, and I was the happiest guy in the world when I was hired in 1980. I worked here for 7 years, and then I moved on for 17 years, and I came back. 2004, I was lucky again to be hired by North Kansas City as the Director of Public Works. And I've been blessed to spend most of my career for my hometown. I love this city and the good people I know who live here. Many business owners that I've known for over the years. It's been such a pleasure. North Kansas City has always had good leadership from its elected and appointed officials. And I thank the council and Mr. Berlin and those who served before you for allowing me to direct the Public Works Department. I want to thank dedicated and hardworking Public Works employees for all they do on a daily basis to maintain the city's infrastructure and keep North Kansas City beautiful. Anthony Sands, I wish you the best in your new position as Director of Public Works, and I know that you will serve the city well. And finally, I will miss everyone I've worked with for so long, but I will be very happy in my new role as a retired guy. Thank you very much.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you to Pat for 17 years. Well, even more than that, as he just pointed out, but 17 of the last years of service. He's done so much for the city over that time. We're going to miss him greatly. Pat has agreed to be available to assist Anthony if there are things that come up occasionally. We'll try to pull him off the golf course if we can, but we'll also try not to bother him any more than we have to. But Pat, thank you for everything that you've done for the city, and we'll miss you. That concludes staff comments. Move on to council member comments and begin with council member DeLong.
Just follow up on that. Congratulations to Pat on your retirement, and enjoy your time. Enjoy your time. Beyond that, as you heard earlier, shots are just going out the door. I got mine coming up on Thursday. And if you haven't already, go ahead and register, even if you're one of the future tiers on the Clay County site or the Missouri Navigator site. So get out there, let's get those shots, and let's get things back to normal. That's it.
Councilmember Saper.
I'm glad we are correcting a infrastructure oversight and building a sidewalk between 26 and 27. And also, Pat, thank you for the good work you've done here. That's it.
Councilmember Smith.
Congrats, Pat. You get your Tuesday nights back. Congrats on that. And hope you get your golf game in line. There's an election coming up, as we pointed out last time. It's getting ever closer. We're under a month now. We had the mayoral forum last night. You can watch that on social media back on the North Kansas City Neighbors Facebook page. And there will be additional candidate forums coming up over the next couple of weeks. So Thursday night, you'll get to meet hopefully everybody that's running, and then tune in the following week for some interviews. That's all from me.
Councilmember Tall.
Part of what happened at the very beginning that was approved is making this Women's History Month. So I just kind of wanted to take a flashback to something that I looked up, women who had put a flyer together in 1915 that said, who plants the fields and harvests the crops when all the able-bodied men are called to war? Women do. Who keeps shops and schools and work in factories while men are in the trenches? Women do. And so this isn't reflective of how we live today, but they had to put that work in. And because of this last year, there have been many articles out that say women are taking on the brunt of childcare while all of our school children are at home, and it's going to set them back years in the workforce. So there is still work to be done. And then in just the last week, we had these headlines from around the world. Women and girls must be the center of reimagining safety. Women's History Month. Good one, celebrating female leaders. Outrage over use of force at Sarah Everard's vigil in the UK and London. Women March for Justice in Australia. And then in Kansas City Star, KU students, this was just today, launched Support for Survivors following threats of women. So there is still work to be done. And the only way that this proclamation could be devalued is if we don't pick up that work.
Councilmember Clevenger.
A couple of things, kind of touch on what Lisa said. I want to wish everyone a happy Women's History Month. I think it is important as a governing body to recognize, what the women have done in this country and what they've contributed. I'd like to see that, on various, last month we had Black History Month, maybe a proclamation for that. October is Disability Awareness Month, kind of hits home to my heart. So I think it's something that we can, maybe that's a job for our Equity Inclusion Committee to see kind of what month is coming up and what kind of proclamations we need. Also want to wish Pat well in his retirement. I know the golf courses start making a little more money. Maybe Paul and Jax might suffer down here in town, but we're going to miss you, Pat. Thanks for all that you've done. You've done a great job for us. And I wanted to also reiterate what Brian said, get out there and get registered on the state navigator or the Clay County Health to get your vaccine. I've got mine set up the same day his is for the first shot on Thursday. I'm glad to see a good COVID report from the hospital, which is encouraging, which hopefully will help us get back to some semblance of normal in the near future. The only other thing I'd written down is a business owner had called just right before the council meeting about the replacement of the bike rack at or the bike rental station there at 18th and Swift. I haven't had a chance to speak to that person, so something staff that I might be bringing a question to you in the near future. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
All right, Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I'd like to say congratulations to Pat. I hope you find it like me, best job I ever had. Wouldn't go back for work for twice the money. And I want you to know that Hodge Park has a men's senior league. We play on Wednesdays. And you can give them a call and join up. We canceled last year because naturally the COVID. I don't know how they're going to work it this year, but we're going to have it. And for the recognizing the women's progress in our country, you know, my mom, it may not be a good thing, I don't know, but she worked on the atomic bomb, and she did her part, you know, in that time period, whether we like it or not, it was there. And I watch history channels, and the women took over the country job just about during World War II. You know, building everything. And we couldn't have survived without them. And they still had to go home and be mothers. You know, and that's the toughest job I've ever seen. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, to echo many things, Pat Hopper, thank you so much. You've done great things for me just as a homeowner, helping me out with some tree things. You showed right up, so sad to see you go, but very excited for your next step. And I love that Rick's already like, get out here and play ball with us. What else do I have here? Happy to see the COVID numbers decreasing, vaccinations increasing. Excellent. And just a shout out to my 96-year-old grandmother, who was one of the original Rosie the Riveters. So just a fun fact. She works at a plant out in California. So that's it. Thanks, everybody.
And Councilmember Farr.
Pat, it's been a long time. I was instrumental, one of 8 that hired you the first time around back when I was on the council the first time. Just seems like yesterday. So go home and have fun. Don't worry about this place. We'll miss you though. See you later. Bye.
Mayor Stilo.
Congratulations, Pat. Enjoy it. Enough said.
Item 26, consideration of a request to hold in recess into an executive session is requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a personnel matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute section 610.0213.
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
1, 2, 3,
Motion
4,
to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Rick's here. Right? Does
Yeah.
that count? Okay.
I'm here.
Okay.
I don't know what happened to my face.
He's got a stand-in tonight.
My dad told me I had the face for a radio.
Aye.
All right. Night all.
Good night.
Bye, guys.